Welcome to my Mosaic project. Today I'm going to show you step by step how I created all those little artworks. I wanted to try something new with small formats because when I make small works I often tend to use only a small object because I have limited space. I wanted to have more freedom, so I put them all together to create a large surface. I did the abstract part with the objects on a very large piece, and then I separated them again to work on them individually. Let's get started. First step, I've got my 16 12 by 12 paintings that I need to assemble to create a large frame that's going to be 48 by 48. So I have tape. This is the first time I've done this, so I'm going to test it out. I hope it's going to hold well. I'm going to start by assembling 4 of them just to see how it holds up. I'm pretty sure I'm gonna need something on the back so it doesn't do that. But I plan to put a styrofoam panel in the back. I have this here that I usually use to sand my paintings. So I'm gonna cut a 48-inch square. First, I will place them in the center. I thought it would probably be better if I taped some parts directly to my background so that the center part would hold to the background and not just to the other canvases. So I made lots of little sections and taped them directly to the background. As I work with the canvas standing up, it was really important to me that it was solid. I also had to make sure I was able to move it during creation because for some object I have to put it back flat. So that's it. Now I'll take it to my easel. There we go. I start like always with the spatula and squeegee. Usually when I do the black part, I do one big plain area, but here I wanted to have lots of little black areas in all the canvases, so it gave a different result. For my first object, I'm going big. I'm going to show you how I use the water balloons. I use the small ones because they are easy to burst. The bigger ones could break my painting. The first step is with the syringe. I'm going to fill it up with paint. And then I will put it inside the balloon. After that, I'm going to fill it with water. I think this will be enough to burst, hopefully. Okay. I'll start with this one, and if it doesn't work, well, we'll start again. Okay, this is the critical moment when I have to throw the water balloon. I know from experience that I have to throw really hard to make sure it bursts on the canvas. Let's go. 1, 2, 3. Oh no, it didn't pop. Well, in the end, it worked, but there is more on the floor than on the canvas. The first attempt was rather disappointing, but I had an idea. Since there are cracks between the canvases, I could insert an X-Acto blade so that a normal balloon could burst when it touched the blade. I never done this before, so let's test it. So let's see if it's gonna work. So I'm going to insert the blade here. This should make the water balloon pop. Well, I don't know if it will work, but I suspect that if it does, it will splash a lot more than it did before. So I put on a pretty raincoat with the symbol of Quebec on it. And now, in addition to throwing hard, I have to throw on the blade. I can't miss. 3, 2, and I missed. Oh la la, at least it didn't break. 1, 2, 3. My aim is really bad. It worked. I'm going to lay it flat, otherwise the paint will keep running and there'll be nothing left. I don't mind my floor being full of paint, but there are limits. Here is what it looks like when it is dry. As for the rest, well, I'm going to use different objects that I'm used to, but that I maybe wouldn't have used on small paintings. The good thing about this project is that I really have no idea what I'm going to do, so when I print the objects, it's really intuitive and random, and it's afterwards that I come to decide what I'm going to do on each painting. It gives me even more freedom, and it's often with projects like this that I allow myself to explore more. Here is one of my new favorite objects. It's technically a brush, but it's a hair dye brush and it leaves really nice marks. And I am getting ready to shoot. This one is really fun to use and quite unpredictable because, as you saw earlier, I don't aim very well. Since I started working with objects, I've been accumulating many different shoes, and there are some that come back quite often. I think you can see them many times in my videos. Then I added colors to certain areas, including some brighter colors, but very little, and if I had to do it all over again, I think I'd make bigger areas of different colors so that each little canvas would be very different in the end. And now the spinning top, an object that is very fun to use. First I have to mix paint with water. Then I simply dip it in and that's it. I'm not even going to move them. Where they fall is where I'll use them. I bought those rose petals for painting a really long time ago, but I think I kept them in a drawer for like 6 months before using them for a special Valentine's Day artwork. And since then, I think I used them in at least like 80% of my paintings. I really love that effect. So it's starting to get a bit more color, but as I was saying earlier, if I had to do it all over again, I'd really go intense with the objects. But I am really happy with my first attempt. I think it came up with some interesting compositions that were different enough from each other to create paintings that will ultimately be very different once the animals are added. At this point, I was really looking forward to take them apart and start turning them around to see what I could do on them. To end this, let's do one more crazy thing. Once again, I dip my object in paint diluted with water so that it slides much better and leaves a bigger mark when you move the object on the canvas, as I am going to do it here. Here is the result. I didn't try to create a focal point because I wanted the objects to be roughly equally distributed in all the little canvases. Now it's time to undo all that. It was really interesting to be able to take them apart and look at them in all orientations to see what inspired me. That was all done in a day of work. After that, I left it all there to look at it the next day with a clear head and start the second part of the work. So I started making the little canvases. I went with what each one inspired in me. For this one, the background was very blue, so I really saw it as an under the sea environment. So I added a few touches of color with shapes that look like the ocean floor, but in a more abstract way. It was actually the first time that I did a dolphin as the main subject of my painting, and I really liked it. For this one, I saw a landscape, so I wanted to accentuate that by adding a few elements with the objects and also by adding little animals in it. I really like the deepness in this painting. I think you can really see that the animals are on different layers. When I have an idea for a painting, I often tend to test my composition on the computer. This allows me to visualize how big I'm going to make my animal, how I'm going to place it, because I want to keep certain parts of my background visible. Like the blue flowers, I really wanted to keep them. I also wanted to keep the little branches that I stamped, and I think they fit really well around the eye. For this one, I already thought the background was quite complete and really beautiful. I thought it had a lot of movement and I didn't want to change it. I just added my subject on top and I really liked the result. I had been wanting to do a close-up for a long time, so I gave it a try. You'll see that a few of the 16 paintings are actually a very close-up animal, and I really liked doing that, especially because the closer the main subject is, the easier it is for me to integrate a little landscape with little animals, but also it leaves more space for objects. So I really liked it and I'm definitely going to do some more, probably on bigger canvases to see how far I can go with this idea and what else I could incorporate. Here is the second one. I mixed a tiger with the sea world. The spinning top effect was so beautiful. I absolutely wanted to keep it and keep the movement. This artwork was in a corner, so there's more work to do given that the canvas is a little less full than the others. I'm used to leaving the corners of a composition a little more empty, so I added more on this one, but the background still inspired this composition. In this one, there were already a lot of colors and shapes that looked like flowers, so I immediately thought of a parrot which could integrate all these colors inside itself. It's one of the birds I painted the most, precisely because it's colorful and I can have more fun with the objects. The next one is another work of the sea. Recently, for a project, I made a few stencils to get the shapes of my animals. It made me work differently because I can make the shape of my animal without having to paint inside of it. It also creates a beautiful halo of light around it, so it opens up the possibilities for a different way of working. For this one, I again came to do a close-up, but this time with the animal at a certain angle, and I find that it works really well with the part on the right, which is a landscape. I think the two sides of the painting blend really well. I'm definitely going to try other compositions like this. For this one, I was once again seeing a landscape, so I integrated a small pair of birds. I also added some objects that I used in the first part of the project. I actually did the same for most of the other paintings. Once I decided what I'm going to do, it's easier to choose where to stamp the objects and to complete the composition. And here's a little owl for the next one. This is a composition I'm used to do, but even if I do it often, each owl ends up being very different from each other. It's a subject I'm certainly not finished exploring because I love doing it. For this wolf, I again wanted to keep the blue flowers and the foliage, so I placed my animal according to that. I also added little cubs throughout. I think it looks great with the semicircle. Once again, I was seeing a landscape, so I added small animals and I also added a lot of floral elements. It felt that there was not enough at the beginning in the painting to make it really united and balanced. Next one. Again, I really liked the background as it was. I thought there was a lot of movement, so I just added a few small elements around the subject. And here is the last canvas, another lion. Yes, it's a subject I really enjoy doing, and once again I mixed the sea world with the terrestrial world. I felt there was a lot of depth on the left side, so I added some little orcas. So there we go. I'll end up by showing you the before and after of each of the paintings. I really enjoyed doing this project and I will probably do it again. In terms of time, the first part took me a full day and the second part was much longer. I'd say it took me about 5 days to do all 16 canvases. The small details obviously take way much longer to do. And here is the mosaic in its original state after the abstract part and also after the animals part. You can see that they are not necessarily in the same orientation as they were when they were all together. I'm really happy about this project. Thank you so much for watching, and I invite you to subscribe to this channel because this is where I'll be putting more long videos like this eventually.